YouTube. Hi, everybody who's on YouTube. I'm going to add Instagram now. Okay, Instagram is going to be the challenge. Let's see. Good morning, Cousin Vera. All right, have everybody who's on the other one. Let's see. Okay, looking at 10:15 a.m. That was the time I wanted to get started. We're not going to hold you long. Let me pause the music. Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. We're talking about researching your family tree. It is a very interesting topic in these times, and we've recently had two stories that have come out on the national level, which are really going to introduce more people or raise the curiosity of researching your family tree. My name is Ronnie Smith. I live in Mableton, Georgia. Both of my deceased parents were from South Carolina. And I think it was it has been in the internet era when the tools to research your family tree became more available and easier to use. Before, you pretty much had to pay a researcher, a genealogist, to research your family tree, or you actually had to know some information yourself in order to get the job done, which normally involves your local county offices, whether it's a courthouse, whether it's the tax office, the office that has the birth certificates, death certificates, those types of places that you would normally have to visit live yourself in order to get the information. But now in the internet age, my first experience going online myself was in January 1994, and the internet browsers came into existence in 1995, and from that time forward to the present day, more information has been placed online. And back in the 70s, there was the movie Roots, based on the book written by Alex Haley, that was almost taken as gospel. No one really challenged it. I mean, people sat through night after night of episodes watching the movie and, just believed it 100% lock, stock, and barrel, unquestioned. And when you fast forward to today, we find out that everyone's story is not the same. We cannot blanket all Americans as being slaves in that same manner. And even in modern times now, you're actually going to find out there is a wall of resistance, and that wall could be a healthy wall, but it also can be an unhealthy wall. And based upon the unhealthy wall is saying that everything that we have been taught has been 100% true, 100% unquestionable, and that's not really the case. You have a lot of new developments. We have new technologies. We see the history books are being rewritten every day just because of new discoveries. And so it is really something to see that when people say that, okay, this is the field I've been an expert in I went to college for this. I have all this experience in this area. And yet we see the books are being rewritten and revised based upon new discoveries and just the pretty much the admission that the previous statements were wrong. Um, that's enough to say, well, hey, right now I'm personally glad that I was a math major in college. 1+1 still equals 2. I don't have to have those concerns, those questions about whether my education is going to be written or declared obsolete or revised, things of that nature. But for a lot of people, it is really a painful experience. And you pretty much get to see how and why they challenge these new theories, these new discoveries. And it's based on emotion many times. We already know that America has had a difficult history. I mean, even when we consider everything that we now know about Christopher Columbus, 1492, and the calls for statues, everything related to that, as well as the American Confederacy, are being pushed aside. But one thing that we do have to remember, that time is indeed a circle, and that circle means that the tables will turn. The first will be last, the last shall be first. And we actually have to use not only that perspective, but when we look at the founding of America, we begin to see why certain things changed and are still in a period of evolution. And the fact of the matter is, we are entering into a new age. I mean, we've seen everything related to this presidential administration questions everything about America. Some of the things that we understood and took, as unquestionable about political parties, about individuals, about the history of America, all of those things are being challenged now. And one great thing about this information that I found and I'm sharing with you this morning, it really does not matter your race, your creed, your background, your family tree. Actually, you have something to be proud of because number one, you're here. When we look at the history, we find that sickness and disease was running rampant, and and really based upon where your family, your ancestors live. If they lived in the South, they really went through a lot because yourself how hot it gets in the summertime, but we really don't consider the risk of sickness and disease that they experienced and had to go through. The medical healthcare field wasn't as strong as it is now. So anyone who actually survived or is living today has a lot to be proud of, just based upon the fact that your family tree, your ancestors had or acquired the physical immunity for you to be alive today. That's an achievement. That's a touchdown. Any day of the week, anyone should be proud of. And so from that, let's start talking about some of the actual history. Hopefully, I've given you enough background on myself, but let's take down the first website you can go to this morning, and this is going to be your main go-to website. And it actually has an iOS app. I have not yet checked to see if there is a Google Play app that's available. I hope so. But there is the website that you can use. And this website actually syncs up with the app. And so that if you enter any information on the website, it will appear on the app. It may not appear in real time. You may have to close the app and reopen it. And then it's going to sync again to show the latest information. And the name of that website is actually FamilySearch.org. FamilySearch.org. Good morning, Nayari, Cameron. Good morning. Good morning. Someone let me know if you can actually see my screen when I switch, and if so, I can feel comfortable going back and forth, or else I'm going to rotate the computer to see what's going on there, so you can see my screen. And I am also on YouTube as well. Okay, I see a little motion. Okay. That's from. Let me know if you. Okay, looks like things froze for a second. Okay. In real time, you may have to close the app and okay. Let me close that one. That was okay. So can you see my screen? That's my first question. Are you able to see my screen? Okay. And I guess I'm going to multitask in some way, or let me just see if I can rotate. No, that's going to be a glare. Good morning, Marquise. Okay. Well, let me just keep talking. Okay. And let me just give you a quick schedule. From 10:15 to 10:45 is the time that I'm planning on talking about researching your family tree, and to include questions and answers. And so if you have any questions, go ahead and type them in now. And so I can go to those questions when it is that time. I feel great this morning. I have my coffee, have water. I think I forgot about my bagels. And, so about the only thing that's going to break me up this morning is if there's some food that starts smelling good and you're like, okay, I'm going to break away then. But here's to the topic at hand. Go to familysearch.org, familysearch.org, and register. It's a free account, and you're going to find it's going to be very helpful. And it's also going to help you whenever you're doing offline research as well. Okay. So when you're on Family Search, what you're able to do, you're going to enter your own name. You're going to enter a spouse if you have one. You're going to enter the names of any children that you have one, and that you're going to start going up into your family tree. Let's say starting with your parents, mother, father, information. As then you're going to do the same for those family members. And here's the best thing that you have to do. You have to talk to your aunts, your uncles, your mother, your father, if they're still living, grandparents, great aunts, great uncles, as many people as you possibly can. You also have to talk to cousins, because your cousins are going to fill in pieces of the puzzle faster for you than any conversations with your own parents, aunts, and uncles may provide. I have a cousin, Laura or Lala. She filled in so many blanks for me, and it made sense at the time. And since that time, there have been nothing but confirmation after confirmation after confirmation. And she's batting 1,000. And so when you have such a historian in your family like that, you have to make yourself available to them based upon their time schedule, their availability, and what information they are willing to share with you. And as you can imagine, some people will have things in their family history that they are not proud of. But it's a thing about not focusing or dwelling upon that, but focusing on that your family is still here, that you've been able to move forward. And yes, there is trauma. There are some things that have happened. Case in point, my own father was murdered by a distant cousin. And so, as painful as that is, and then that becomes a mark on the family tree in terms of the history. We live, we survive, we keep going forward. We look forward to living another day. Good morning, Linwood. And so register for our account on familysearch.org. talk to as many relatives as you can, uh, as old as you can, as young as you can, anyone who has the information. Because what happens is once you're using FamilySearch.org and the software that's included in the site to create your family tree, you're going to find out that one, either you're going to discover aunts and uncles that you did not know of, as well as um, great aunts and uncles that you did not know of, and your family tree is just going to grow quickly and faster than you really can imagine. That is the biggest surprise. And then here's a great thing about your conversations. You will be able to remember conversations or hearing your grandparents talk about brothers and sisters that you may not have ever met. You may not have any mental picture of what they look like, but those names are going to be your key when you're searching FamilySearch.org. And like I said, FamilySearch does have an app that's on the iTunes store. It's free, and it syncs up with your account on the website. Okay. And so remember those names of aunts, uncles, great aunts, great uncles, because that's going to accelerate your search, and that's going to make sure that you are looking at the correct person on Family Search. Okay. Now, here's one thing that's happened for me researching my family tree, and even I guess this year has been very eye-opening. When we look at modern times, when we look at the state of the world, we also look at the history of the world, we are seeing some apparent disconnections. And these disconnections are screaming very loudly that everything has not been seamless as we want to imagine. And then we have to realize there is a reason for that. We may not know the reason, but yes, indeed, there is a reason for that. And because of that, I won't call it, it's not a full disconnection, but there's a gap in the sequence. It's almost like you're on one highway, but somehow you start taking an exit. And this exit is being taken not only individually, but as a family, as a neighborhood, subdivision, city, county, state, country, nation, world, you have it. Okay. And these I guess I call them moments of truth. These moments of truth are not anomalies. They're not that unique because they have happened before. And because they have happened before, that's why many times we're not understanding what's happening in the present now. I mean, I'm talking about even your own personal life. These things have happened in your past, one way, shape, or form. It may not have happened with you. It may not have happened with your mother or father specifically, but you can best believe that it's happened with your aunts, your uncles, your grandparents, your great aunts, your great uncles, somebody somewhere. You're not necessarily the first. Okay. I knew from a very young age that there were many preachers and there were many teachers in my family on both sides of the family tree. Okay. And it was like, well, hey, in my mind, I was doing my own thing. I wasn't looking to do either one of those routes, go either one of those paths. I was just looking to finish high school successfully, go to college, get a good job, the whole story after that, have a family, everything. Okay. But the fact of the matter is I have preachers on both sides of the family tree. I have teachers on both sides of the family tree. And my first grade aunt was my first grade aunt was my father's sister. And I couldn't ask for any better than that. And so even though you have a lot of things going on in your family tree, positive or negative, you have to realize that whatever you're going through now, the only thing that's really going on is that you have new technology. You have new technology to experience what they have gone through in a very similar way, but it's not totally 100% unique. Uh, we do have the opportunity many times to break the family curses that are upon our families. We don't have to go the same route, but at the same time, we have to realize there is always this high probability, unless we do something distinctively different, that we are just going around in a circle. It's almost like you're going around a track, invisible track that you're not aware of, just like the earth revolves around the sun. And then we have to realize people did believe that the whole universe revolved around earth at one point, and you actually have people who were excommunicated by the church, burned at the stake, almost, being declared witches. And so a lot of all history is actually one. All these things that have happened in the world, no matter what they've been, they involve human nature. You actually have the animal kingdom, but we're not talking about all of that. But human nature is human nature. And there is definitely nothing new under the sun. And so when you're researching your family tree, just understand, number one, you are a survivor. You have immunities in your system, your body, and then even from the environment that you're living in, you're working within, you always have something that's going to strengthen you, strengthen you, not only you, but even your descendants, even your nieces and nephews that you have in, contact with. And so back to myself one point. When after I was called into the ministry, we started starting the church in 1998. Okay. I knew that my great grandfather had started a church, but not only one church, he founded churches, plural. He founded so many churches on my mother's side, Reverend Benjamin Bragdon. He founded so many churches that the only analogy that I can possibly have, that we are still finding churches that he founded almost as if someone who fathered so many children, out there. That's how many churches he found. I had an uncle and aunt that went to I think it was a church anniversary or something. And when they read the church history, my great grandfather's name was mentioned as the founding pastor, the founder of that church. And it blew their mind. It blew my mind, because I knew he started the church that I was baptized in Nichols, South Carolina. But again, don't look at yourself as that single lottery ticket that everything good or bad is happening to you. You will find out, if you have enough conversations, even within, let's say, 2 to 3 generations, up to your grandparents, that is, you're going to find out that certain things have happened before, and that your situation is not that unique. And what you have to focus on is enduring, surviving, and overcoming, just as your parents and ancestors have done. Okay. So again, let me look at, good morning, Stephanie. Good morning, Joseph. Good morning, Keela. Welcome aboard. We're talking about researching your family tree. And if you haven't done it already, go to familysearch.org and create a free account, and it's going to be free resources there. And the one great thing about it, you are able to share the information with your sons and daughters, your cousins, your parents, your aunts and uncles, because the family tree is going to come together like a jigsaw puzzle. And that jigsaw puzzle it's going to zoom together. It's not going to be a slow process. It's going to zoom together. If you have enough information to know, to know a grand aunt, grand uncle, one of your grandparents, brothers or sisters, that is virtually enough information right there to just run rampant on Family Search. You will be able to complete so much of your family tree so quickly. It's just going to accelerate. And when I was researching my own, I was able to find Benjamin Bragdon's mother, Mary Bragdon. But within the past week, I was able to find, even before the Civil War, census records. And that one showed her age, and another one showed, estimated year of birth. And then, I can go even earlier than that, hopefully. But then here's the impact of race in a lot of this. Number one, even before, let's say, the Civil War, a lot of people who were considered slaves, their information was not recorded for themselves, but for their slave owner. And one of the biggest changes that I'm seeing within this year is, like I said before, the concept of slavery has to evolve and it has to change. And so those ancestors around before 1865, especially within the African American community, may have been recorded, but they weren't recorded with their first and last name. They were just recorded with gender, male, female, age, and that was it. They didn't record much information on them at all. The census takers weren't looking for much information on them at all. On the later census, let's say the census of 1870, and you have to remember, in the United States, the census is taken every 10 years. And so it gets better from 1870, 1880, 1890 onward. But then there's this restriction on the US Census. Whenever we complete a census form now, whether we complete it ourselves online or if we are speaking to a live person, that information is kept private and confidential for 75 years. Okay. So that 75-year gap, for privacy reasons, and it's, in this modern era, privacy is a big concern. But at the same time, it's almost like your family tree goes underground for 75 years. And that's the reason you have to talk to as many family members as possible, because you need to come out of that 75-year gap and able to use the resources of that online better, more efficient, and not waste a lot of time. Okay. And so that 75-year gap is brutal. I mean, but at the same time, once you're able to identify grandparents, their brothers and sisters, you're able to speed up the process. And so some time ago, let's say maybe in the 90s to the late 90s, early 2000s, maybe 2010, I did the research. I had an account with Ancestry.com one time, and I believe that's how I was able to find Mary Bragdon. Okay. She is my great grandmother. Okay. She is my grandmother's grandmother. Okay. So that's 5 generations. And of course, at that time, I assumed she was a slave. Okay. But then again, the issue about slavery is there were not only Black people as slaves, there were white people kept as slaves. Slavery was a condition as having debt today. Okay. Debt today was considered slavery back then. They owed somebody something. They owed somebody, whether it was 7 years of labor, they were considered an indentured servant. Even if they had to sign something to get to America, there's a chance, white or Black, they were considered an indentured servant. They were considered a slave. But then at the same time, everyone did not remain a slave that entire time moving forward to the present. Okay. Here's my estimation. Slavery to debt, to credit, let's say having bad credit or good credit, the next 100 years, people will be asking the question, did your ancestor have student loans? That's going to be the same essential question as what we think today, was your ancestor a slave? And so just to give you some perspective, that's really how we have to view slavery today. Okay. And then once you're using search, what's going to happen in the right margin of Family Search, you're going to see the logos and names of other companies. The first one will be Family Search itself. And I just discovered this Wednesday night. Okay. Um, and here's the interesting thing about all of this in terms of genealogy, researching your family tree. There's a lot of information, and I'm going to say the bulk of the information in the United States is being stored, maintained, safeguarded under the oversight of the Church of the Latter-day Saints, the Mormon Church. I have not yet discovered the how and why of that, but they have the information. I mean, that raises curiosity, a red flag, you name it, you have it within itself. Okay, I'm almost at my finish time, but I'm going to have to go another 15 minutes at least to make sure you have enough to get started, and then you can ask me questions at any point in time later. Okay, so the Mormon Church, the Church of the Latter-day Saints, have all of this information. Initially, the way we knew of this information was through Ancestry.com. But now they have FamilySearch.org. I personally believe that FamilySearch.org and Ancestry.com actually has the same identical information, but the difference is Ancestry.com is a paid site with a paid membership, and Family Search is free. Okay, how and why, I don't know. You know, I'm not going to get into that. We're not going to spend any time on that. But at the same time, they have had the records for a very long time. Around the country, there are centers called the National Archives. Okay. Now, the National Archives, as I knew it, would be, we have 50 states. We knew there were at least 50 National Archives. But now it seems as if they're not just located in the capital of the state anymore. There's another location, perhaps in a different part of the state. But guess what? Now the Mormon Church is opening what they call family history centers around the country. Okay, these family history centers are the National Archive location that we used to know, in the same facility, but they've opened up this other family history center that has access to the same information. There is a National Archive site in Atlanta. It was down near Fort McPherson. I'm not sure if it was on Fort McPherson or it was nearby. When you get down there, you will see signs, National Archives. Now that National Archives location is a family history center. They have not stripped out the National Archives name or aspect of it, but when you go online and research family history centers for your state, just realize you may be visiting a facility that was once known as a National Archives. Okay, I found out about these new family history centers within the past week. I think I found out about it Monday or Tuesday, but they have very restricted hours, which is a major downfall. I mean, a major gap. This one that I went to was only open on Wednesday night for 2 hours, and you had to go by appointment on any other day. And so you have this very narrow window of time that you're able to go there. Atlanta traffic being what it is, I said, well, hey, I'm going to go. I know I have a Peach Pass. I can get in this high speed, lane out of traffic. And then I still messed around and didn't take the right exit that I needed to. So I had to go out further and had to work my way down. I got there. Let's say I got there around 7:30. I walk up on, these Mormon members standing outside the church. I ask about the Family History Center. They say it's inside. Go down this long hallway. It's about halfway on the left. I follow their directions. First, I take another look at it. I mean, sun is already dark. Sun has already set. It's dark here in Atlanta now at this time of day. They were wearing scouting outfits, Scoutmasters. So I go down this hall, make this turn, go all the way halfway. I see Family History Center on the door. I touch the door is locked. I'm like, oh man, what's going on? I go to the next door, that door is locked. I see a gentleman sitting way at the end of the hall. I mean, this is a huge building. I'm about to walk to him, and a lady opens the door, the first door I tried to get into, behind me. I said, I'm looking for the Family History Center. I hear that you have records. You know, we make a small talk. She says, yes, come on in. I walk in. I'm in a Mormon church. I've been to Utah. I've been to Salt Lake City before. Needless to say, I'm the only Black African American, you name it, on the property that I see. Okay, in this room looked like perhaps a study room in college or any library. You see computers. This lady who opened the door, she was one of two ladies there. Another lady was doing some research from her family tree, and there was this gentleman who I think was either the technical expert or he was working there that evening. He was the church member, the Mormon member, who knew what to do if you had any questions. Okay. Again, 7:30. I know this place is going to close at 9. So I already had my game plan. You know, thank God I already was using FamilySearch.org. Hey, new people, Timothy Smith. Good morning. Good morning, Angie. Good morning, Shayla. Go to FamilySearch.org. Sign up for a free account. It's going to be your best resource. And I'm explaining the process of how to use it. Okay, back into this room. Fortunately, I had used Family Search from home to find a lot of information. And so I was ahead of the game in terms of not needing the full 2 hours, but I knew that hour and a half that I had remaining was going to run out. I get on a computer. The gentleman says something about Family Search. I pull up Family Search. I log in. He tells me on the Family Search page in the right-hand margin, you see Family Search. You see like 2 lines for Ancestry.com, and you see a couple of other names. I knew those other names were paid sites. What I did not know before Wednesday night was when you click on a name in Family Search and click on one of those names of companies in the right-hand margin, it pulls the information from Family Search over into that site so you can do additional research to see what that additional site has that Family Search does not have. But the roadblock is those sites are paid sites, right? They require membership. And so the moment I logged into what I thought was my Ancestry.com, I still receive emails from them. I uploaded a family tree to their site years ago. The roadblock was Ancestry.com is still treating me as a person on the street looking for money. Roadblock, okay? And the guy he's doing something on the computer. He can't understand why it's doing what he's doing. But here was the resolution. What he did, he logged into his Ancestry.com account so I can at least see the information. I did not sync any information between those two on his account, but I did click on Family Search on my account that went into his account so I could view the information. Again, you're trying to view information when you go to Family History Center or to the National Archives and you don't want to pay any money. There was one site that was good enough that if I was going to pay any money, it would be Find My Past. I don't remember if it was .com or .org, but Find My Past. If I was going to pay for any site today, that would be the one, because I found more information there that complemented what I had and what I was looking for. So you go into Family Search, you're filling in as much information as possible. You're clicking on, you click on Family Search in the right, I'm gonna point this way, in your right-hand margin first, because that's going to, it's going to research the information about your family tree that appears on FamilySearch.org first, okay? The most recent U.S. Census that has been released, that has been made available to the public, to the world, is 1940. And of course, that became available in 2015. I totally forgot about 1940 becoming available in 2015 because the last census I actually looked at was the 1930 census. And that's how I was able to track, go in the family tree and find Mary Bragdon. But now that the 1940 census is out, what it does, it gives you another look, another perspective at your ancestors, and it starts to give you, it gives you more information that each census may not have. You find out people who were born, people who died. They start asking different questions. Some of the census, I don't know the first one, but I assume it was the case always. They asked whether the person could read, write. They asked about their occupation. I think some of them ask about education, what grades they attended, you know, and things of that nature. So you're able to see all of this information on the census reports, okay? Then again, back to history, this information was not recorded for all Black people because if people were considered slaves, they were recorded for tax purposes only. Again, they were recorded as male, female, their ages were recorded. And again, because their names weren't recorded, and that's the only way they appeared at the county courthouse for tax purposes, it's almost, you can say that as funny, as weird and surreal as it is, you can almost say that Black people didn't have birthdays in that era. And that's how, and that is sad because bottom line, it is an indictment upon America itself. The indictment upon America is that you did not value your own people within your own geographical boundaries enough to recognize them with a name. I mean, even if it was just a first name, that would have been more than what we have now. Okay. And so being that they did not have a name, if you're able to get back, let's say even within your lifetime, your oldest age that you live, if you're able to get back 200 years as a Black person, you've won the Super Bowl. Bottom line, you won the Super Bowl. And because of that, that's how now even the story of Roots and the movie Roots gets called into question, because how is it that your family tree goes back to Africa when typically if we achieve 200 years of history research that we are able to feel confident about, we're feeling great. But here's a person that goes back all the way to Africa. No fingers are pointing, no shade thrown, but it does begin to look suspicious. Okay. And so just because if we're able to get 200 years, we've won the Super Bowl. Bottom line. Okay. And so you're looking at Family Search, you're clicking on the names, and then what I really haven't told you is that the census takers were very slack. It was almost free money to them. They walked out. They didn't have to punch a time clock. They're walking through these neighborhoods. They're driving through these neighborhoods later on. But these folks were some of the slackest people ever. I mean, the government waste, the bureaucracy, it was already there because there was no accountability. They were slack, bottom line. They were very slack. And one of the ways of their slackness that you will find out is that you would have ancestors' names misspelled to the degree you would think is a different person. You will also I ran into one roadblock of, I have one ancestor, his name was Frank Crawford, and it turns out he was a junior. Okay, so Frank Crawford Jr., they had a hard time. The census reports had a hard time until later about including junior and senior. But when they included senior on one site, they included senior as sir, as if he was knighted by a queen. You know, Sir Frank Crawford was actually Frank Crawford Sr. So you may run into that. Going forward, going to my grandfather's name, Lonnie Smith, was badly misspelled on one census. I don't know if it was 1930, 1940, but they spelled his name Lamut, almost Lamont, Lamont, Lamont. And I'm like, I can't even pronounce it. I'm blown away about it. And the only way that I knew it was actually him was the children in the family. Okay. Once you're up to your aunts and uncles, you see them on a census report, and you have it almost like you have a collection of names. That collection of names, you can almost look like a hand, a claw, a DNA sample, even from a record keeping perspective, because you're going to see that same cluster of names someplace else. And that tells you whether you have the right parent, you have the right, set of children, everything. But just know that you're going to run into misspelled ancestor names. The great thing about Family Search is you're able to find these people, and I think it's called merge. You're able to merge their records, or you're able to sync them, connect them to let people know that they are the same person. So I was able to see my paternal family. I don't remember necessarily when my father was young, but my grandfather's name was badly misspelled, Lamut Smith. And then again, my grandfather was Lonnie Smith Sr. My father was Lonnie Smith Jr. On this same census report, my father's name is not spelled the way we spell it. His father, who's the head of the household, name is badly misspelled, and they are junior and senior. And so it's just like, if these people are junior and senior and they're in the same household, and you're going to badly misspell one person's name before on Ancestry.com and using the internet before, that was a fork in the road. No wonder I kept running into dead ends. Okay. So realize you're going to see family members whose names are badly misspelled, grossly misspelled, negligently misspelled. Okay. And so realize that, but still remember, you have those aunts and uncles whose names together will show you who their parents were, mother and father, and you're going to do some reverse history based upon that. Okay, 1101. I'm going to just keep going until I get the bulk of information out. Okay. So once you're able to find U.S. Census reports, you're also able to find birth certificates and death certificates. And the best thing about these is that you're almost able to find more information from a death certificate than you are a birth certificate, because the death certificate lists the parent's name. It will list the mother's maiden name many times. And that's what you're looking for. You're looking for that mother's maiden name. As many times as you can find a mother's maiden name, you're as good as gold. Well, regardless. I mean, and it's funny because you can have a father's great grandfather's name, that family tree, those record keeping around men seems to have been very poor. But at the same time, if you have that information based upon your maternal line, a grandmother, it gets better. Okay. So remember that you will find more information on a death certificate than you can typically on a birth certificate. It also will tell you the cause of death. I was surprised to find out we had an aunt, and maybe later on I found someone else who had an uncle who went to Canada and died at a very young age. One person died of tuberculosis. Another person died of something else. It wasn't anything unusual. And then again, the way it impacts us today is you are going to find that you're under threat of sickness and disease, just like they were. And so it does give you some information to know that, yes, you should be, going to the gyms, you should be exercising, working out, and eating as best as possible. Okay. So that's pretty much the real basis right there. But remember, when you're on familysearch.org, you can click on Ancestry and these other sites, but the best place to do that is when you go to a family history center, unless you're going to pay for it. They're able to log into their accounts at the Family History Center so you can see the information. And then your phone is going to be your best tool, because you're going to be running out of time. Take a picture of the screen. You know, that's what I did. I was running out of time. I searched as many branches of the family tree as I could, but then I realized I was running out of time. So I started taking photos of the people, of the screenshots, you know, of that information. And then when I came back home, I used Family Search again to deep dive into those records. So there you have it. If there was anything else I can possibly add to this conversation today is, oh yeah, one thing, one major thing. Every state, every county, in some way, shape, or form, had a historian. And this was one of the turning points of me getting comfortable in saying that now I realize, I accept, I'm not looking for any other evidence, you know, to say that my family was Native American, indigenous to America. It makes sense. It clicks. And one of the ways that it clicked was when I looked at the history that was written about the county. Not only are there maps of the colonies, maps of the counties, maps where places were named, renamed, rivers, creeks, lakes, you name it. You will also find there are Native American Indian maps that are not as specific as we would want them to be, but they will tell you which tribes were located in different states. This blew my mind on another level, because again, we find out here in America, even with, you know, the Pilgrims and everybody else coming from England, you still have so many states, rivers, counties, creeks, you name it, that are based upon these Native American names. The PD area that I'm from in South Carolina was a PD tribe. And then this PD tribe the name was spelled differently. We spell it, or we see it today as P-E-E-D-E-E, 2 words. But back then, PD was spelled as 1 word, spelled as P-E-D-E-E. And then they said that, who knows, that it may have been named off somebody carving their name or initials on a tree that was a colonizer, you know, immigrant. But at the same time, the fact that it was carved on a tree tells you this was the geographical area this tribe was living in. Okay. So these Indian tribes were living all over North America in some way, shape, or form. And so it starts raising different questions that, okay, what's going on here? And the case in point was, it was all, the best way to put it compared to modern times would be gentrification. You know, where you have wealthy people who move into a poor neighborhood, they buy the homes from the poor then leave by choice, by selling their home, or they leave by force because they can't afford to pay the property tax. That is all that's going on in Metro Atlanta. It's going on in different parts of the country, probably different parts of the world. So the immigrants that were coming to America were gentrifying, slowly pushing people out through the way of buying their land and promising to pay them for their land and the natural resources that went along with it. Okay. So here's now how we slightly go into, I don't know if you want to call it conspiracy theory or what, but the fact of the matter is, a lot of promises were made to Native American tribes that they were never kept. Okay. They were reneged upon directly, they were reneged upon indirectly. And that's why you have a lot of stuff going on, even with the Native American tribes today with the government. And the government has given them some concessions that everyone does not seem to enjoy. But at the same time, you begin to understand how and why. And it was because the governors of the colonies and later the states and even the presidents were making treaties with these Native American tribes for them to move, and we will pay you. But then guess what? Just like we saw in the census report, the records that were kept were so poor, they later said, well, we don't have any record of what we owe you. We don't have any record of how many trees were cut. We don't have any record of what natural resources were found on your property. And so now you have these Native American tribes that have moved elsewhere, and they're saying, well, what about my money? Okay, what about our money? We moved, and then you have all these wars that have taken place, and these wars that were taking place in America were one or two different things. They were fighting the Indians to get them to move. They didn't win 100%. We have to rethink that. And they were fighting slavery because slavery was free labor. Okay. And then the thing about slavery was, here's the trick about slavery. America, you have to look at it like we are moving into a new high school, let's say, for example. Okay. We assume that people from this junior high or middle school, and this middle school is actually England or other countries, European countries, France, Scotland, Ireland, Spain, Portugal, you name it. Okay. Those people were the ones it was a rush to get to the America as much as they could. But when they got here, all they had were all these Native Americans. And then as people started moving in, they were trying to get these Native Americans to move out. Some attempts to relocate these people was a limited degree of success. But the case of the point is, all of the people did not move. That's the secret of America. All of the people did not move. You have people who stayed, and because they stayed, they started taking on more of the ways of the white men, the Europeans, customs, clothes, traditions, you name it. But these people who did move, they're moving, and it's almost how and why they move, but they are moving, they're marrying different people and everything. And then you come to find out that the Native Americans and the so-called slaves that were brought over, they were so much alike that you could not distinguish who was who. Okay. And that fact of the matter says a whole lot. And it says a lot, not just directly, but indirectly, because many times we miss the indirect truth that is there before us because we're thinking it has to be a direct connection. It has to be spelled out to us, but it's already there. Just like I said, you receive more information from a death certificate than a birth certificate. And the fact of the matter is, these Native Americans and even the imported blacks or imported slaves looked alike. Okay. Back to the county. There are books that are written pretty much about many counties in America. I found a book on the history of Marion County, where both of my parents were born within Marion County. Okay. And the person who wrote this book was a retired lawyer. His family has a community, a town named after them in South Carolina, in my county, Sellers. So people were asking him to write this story for a long time, to do the research. He wouldn't do it because he was a busy attorney. But then when he got to the point where he retired and his hearing started going bad, that's when he decided to write this history of Marion County. Okay. He starts writing this book. He's contacting all these different people. And guess what? This person has no reason to lie because technically he assumes that his whole book is going to be read by a majority white audience. Okay, so he's including stuff in his book that when you tell it to other African Americans, they want to say that it's a conspiracy, but the conspiracy is, one of the jokes is, if you want to hide anything from a black person, you hide it in a Bible, you hide it in a book. And that's what they did. This person writes this story and he puts it in this book. And guess what? These same documents that I'm talking about that I located for my county, you will be able to locate for yours because they're also online. Second website that I should have mentioned earlier just came to me. Archive.org, I believe. You may find it listed as the Internet Wayback Machine. And what it technically did was it archives sites that are online. I'm not sure if it continues today, but there was a certain point from, I would say, 1994 through 2000 today. If you wanted to find a site from, let's say, 94 to 2000, you just go to the Internet Wayback Machine at archive.org, I believe, and it will show you what was on that site verbatim. That site may have changed, they may have moved, pictures, content, you name it, but it's going to show you what was on that site at that point in time. And I believe there's a timeline that you can click on different years or different 5 or 10 year periods to show you what the site looked like during that point in time. And so with that information, you are able to find the history of your county, the history of your state. Also check to see if there is a history of Native American tribes for your county, for your state. I found that as well. And so that information reinforced the information that I saw about the map of tribes in the United States. Doing the research, this person, Sellers, I don't know if it was W.W. Sellers, but again, you can find him online. Let's say Sellers. Attorney Sellers does research. He does not do research intended for the slaves, the former slaves, black people, Native American, period. He's writing this book for a predominantly white audience. So therefore, one, he doesn't have any reason to lie. He's an attorney, so he already has credibility. Say what you will about attorneys, he has credibility at the time he writes this book. In this book, he writes, slaves were not imported into South Carolina until 1671, and they were imported from Barbados. Okay, so it was almost just like looking at YouTube or anything else and looking at the U.S. Census reports. It drew a line in the sand because it now says no matter what we were told about anyone else, I mean, Alex Haley included, his family said, Virginia, Maryland, what else? DC, in that area, slave ships were going to Virginia. But then again, we were always taught and told that Charleston, South Carolina was a major slave port, as well as New Orleans, I want to say. Okay. So, but now you're being told that slaves were not imported into South Carolina until 1671. Fast forward to today, the U.S. population is around 332 people, no less than 323 people, but I'm pretty sure it was 332. England, I think, is maybe 400. Okay. And so when you start to look at the history account, the census, the population growth, you're not able to produce enough people to be classified as minorities or African American that number 12 to 13% of that 333 million to backtrack to 1671, whatever numbers they had, all the way up into they were actually being listed on the census reports as black or whatever. You don't get there from here. One of these things is not like the other. Either this modern day history is true or a lie, or this past is the truth or a lie. They're not reconciling with one another. And that lack of reconciliation tells us, okay, something more was going on than what we were told. Okay, I'm gonna welcome some new people's names I see. Good morning, Janet. Good morning, Carolyn. Good morning, Gerard. How you doing? Go to familysearch.org, register for a free account. It's going to allow you to do free research. And it does tie into some paid accounts, but you have the choice of whether you want to pay for those or not. The bulk of your research is going to be done on familysearch.org, and it's going to create a family tree that your family and the descendants will be able to see forever. And if they locate any new information, it will fit into their the same family tree. It's not going to create different family trees. Okay, so going back into the population growth, we do not get there from here from 1671 to 2018, 12 to 13% of the population. I'm a mathematician. I'm not going to believe it. I just can't believe it because one reason I don't believe it, because the population, there would have had to been a population boom. The Black birth rate would have exceeded the general population birth rate, and we were never told that. We were never told that. We were never told that the general population had a significant decline that created the birth rate or allowed the minority birth rate to go high. So no matter what side you're looking at, this majority population birth rate was, we know we have baby boomers, we know we have millennials, we know that, that's modern time. But then when you look at these numbers that are being stated for minorities, starting from 1671 in South Carolina to modern times, there's this big gap because one, we've all heard the names. At one point in time, we were called African American. We were called Black in this other point in time. We were called Negro at this other point in time. We were called colored at this other point in time. These names kept changing. And then when you step back over into the Native American, they reclassified the Native Americans in many places as Black and Black as Native American in order to divide and separate, your numbers again. So your numbers are now, when you look at the census report, or anything that's going to have demographic information, you have all these check boxes that people are checking themselves into, not knowing that they may belong in another check box, or the check box they're putting themselves into is wrong. And so the puzzle as told falls apart, while the puzzle that you're able to create and put together on Family Search comes together. And so even now, with modern time, modern history, what you're finding with what was reported about the ancestry of Senator Warren, as well as, I won't call his last name, 45. Today I saw a report that said he was claiming some Nordic ancestry when it turns out to have been a lie. So here's somebody who was claiming that they were a descendant of the Vikings, but it turns out to be a lie. Par for the course, in my opinion. But then here's the other beauty that all of us have to recognize. Now, all over again, just as what happened in the 70s when Alex Haley did Roots, the interest in family trees is going to only increase. And so what happens even in these areas that we overlook, you have generations upon generations of, let's say, Native Americans, or those who were classified as Native Americans, or those who moved to be Native Americans. And then you have this other entry point into Native American history where you had people who actually paid money to be classified as Native Americans. Okay. And I heard about it. I didn't know much about it, but there's a group of people historically, what that was called $5 Indians. And all they had to pay at the time was $5 to be called an Indian, or now Native American. So there again, That's how you have what I said online on Facebook. 45 is the history of America. You have people who back then paid money to be classified as something else. And you look at why. The reason they did it was they thought there was going to be some benefits. Bottom line, you know, you had President Andrew Jackson who signed a treaty with Native Americans, you know, and reneged on it, you know. So the press was saying, yes, these Indians, you know, they're giving stuff to these Indians. They're giving, you know, land, this and the other, but they never paid them. They put them on reservations. They killed them with smallpox. You know, they killed them with sickness and disease, and they never paid them. And so that's why now, think about it. If your family moved someplace, your way of life was broken up, your whole connection to America was your life as you knew it was broken up. I was looking for a charger. Was broken up, but now you have to live in this other area, and this other area is called a reservation. And that this reservation, you know, you survive and adapt as best as you could, but it's not technically home for you. I don't want my computer to go dead while I'm talking, so let me plug this charge in. Okay. And so these Native Americans got moved. You have these other people who are paying for membership into this tribe. And so the story gets funnier and weirder and weirder as you go along. And so you actually had people who paid to be classified as Native Americans. And then over time, America was reclassifying race, demographics, everything else. So the jigsaw puzzle was being broken apart one way or the other. But then at the same time, you had these people who did not move. You know, we were taught with the Trail of Tears, we assumed that everybody moved. The case in point was everybody did not move. Okay, everybody did not move. And really, when you look at it, when I said that you have rivers, lakes, counties, states, communities that still kept those Native American names or some type of derivative of those names, but that link is still there. Fast forward until this week. Guess what? Remember when I said that my father, Lonnie Smith's name, my grandfather's name was misspelled? This same night, this past Wednesday night, while I'm looking on these sites, I click on, short before time to leave, I clicked on the name. You can do so many searches so many different ways based upon what you do know and what other stuff you may not be sure of. But I clicked on the name Lonnie. And this was the icebreaker that drove home so much that we missed verbatim. All of us missed this. We know it on one level, but we don't understand it on a different level, and therefore we don't apply it to our lives. The name Lonnie is not a traditional European English name. When I clicked on the name Lonnie, it pulled up photos. I don't know, I've never seen a photo of my grandfather, but it pulled up these other Lonnies with the same name, same spelling, and things got surreal at this point because now I'm able to look at names and faces, and I'm seeing people that, lack of a better word, I would, now knowing what I know, I would classify as Native Americans. So what am I trying to say? I'm saying that the names we have today are, and especially this slightly older generation, this generation, I'll say parents and grandparents, and some of us younger, if you're in your 30s, I'd probably say great grandparents, Your ancestors in the 20th century, from 1900 on, were using names because those names had significance to Native Americans. Okay, that's it. That's another hidden secret of America. Hey, Glenn. Hey, how you doing? And that's how the water gets deeper, not deep. It gets deeper all of a sudden because one, we were looking for records for I was looking for records to either prove or disprove, but it's like the more records I look at, and then now I'm starting to realize some of the what they say, off the book accounting methods that were being used. It confirms it again because one, the reason he was named Lonnie had a Native American relevance than a European relevance. You know, I'm like, okay, let me find a European that was named Lonnie, Loney. Okay. And then my oldest daughter made a joke about it, about how bad his name was misspelled. Well, once she asked me at one point, why weren't you named Lonnie Smith the third? And then, you know, I have no answer, but only thing I could say was, well, technically I can change my name. And then, hey, Glenn, and then it gave me this moment of truth, like, okay, do I want to change my name? Do I, you know, where is my identity? And that's the question all of us are going to have. Where is my identity? Is my name, do I identify with the name of Ronnie? Do I identify with my father and grandfather, Lonnie? But then at the same time, the spelling of my name comes from their name. So, you know, if you call me Lonnie Smith the third, or if I call myself Lonnie Smith the third, you know, am I breaking any law? Am I, you know, in violation of anything? No. Legally, you know, I could change it. You know, that's going to be a good question. That's a great question. I can do it. I know the means to do it. But where is your identity? And that's one of the major things about this whole new interest in our family trees. And then I'm going to speak quickly on the difference and the similarities between African American and predominantly white community, because you need to know as well this history and how it shapes and impacts and affects your family tree, because it is still going on today in one shape or form or another. Okay. And so what the case is, the way that it shapes and reverses itself is that you will see new information coming out in today's news, today's press about family trees, and either it's going to become easier or it's going to become more difficult to gain access, because I'm saying go research your family tree now while you can. Ask as many questions as you can, go research it while you can, but then understand some of the significance and the history behind it, because I'm telling you, your ancestors' names, even your names, and even our last names came from not necessarily Europe, as we would like to believe or would like to think of some slave owner. That's not necessarily the case. That name was chosen for some impact of Native American experience. And here's another case in point of how I know. It was reported in one of the books that the census reporters were even afraid to go in one area to do the census. And what they did was they called all of the people Smith. I'm looking at this. I'm not looking to see myself in these books, but here I am. They call these people Smith because a census reporter did not want to go into this area. And so technically that was America redlining again. And so by the time the next census comes out, they go in there, all these people now are called Smith when they didn't have any necessary family tree of it. And so you see how people are reclassified. People are moved on to different books, roles, census counts, and they're taking off. There's this transition the entire time. And so look at your own last name. You know, I'm looking at last names of people who even joined this. And again, it starts ringing. Once you see it, you can't forget it. You cannot look away because it's there. Let's say Riddick. There we go again. You know, you don't see many Europeans today named Riddick. You look at Addison. You know, I do know one Caucasian named Addison. Smith again. I see Blue. I see Bell. You know, I could go up the list. I see. I mean, it's just there. When you start looking at the names of the people you know, you start going down Facebook. Look at your friends' names. Don't just look at the last names. Look at the first names as well. It's there. I mean, it's there. You know, and then when we do realize a lot of people, they are who were, let's say, their ancestors were slaves in South Carolina. That is, they have to have a Charleston experience. They have to have some type of family count that, you know, their family reunion is not necessarily held in Charleston, but they have to have a lot of family members that come from Charleston. That's when the slave story makes sense. You know, we hear the Geechee people, the Gullah people, but then again, those names have Native American significance. Okay. So we've been going at it pretty good. I see we have almost 1 hour, 29 minutes. Yes, you know, I can talk. I can talk. If you wake me up from my sleep, I'm talking. So I'm gonna wrap this up with this. Use familysearch.org. Use the resources that you have in your family. Go to a family history center when it's open and available to you. Realize that names will be badly misspelled. That's about the biggest thing. And realize also, like I said, there are books written on your county, your state. These books will give you more information, may not be specific to your family for African Americans, but it will give you what was going on in that area. And you will see how what was going on did shape your family tree one way or another. Again, I've enjoyed this time. I know this video will be on Facebook. I will keep it available, keep it open to the public. And have a great day. If you didn't ask, I don't know if we have any questions now, but ask me questions now, ask me questions later. I definitely will give you the answer. And if you want to do a session together, perhaps, you know, to get some assistance, some tips on how to research your family tree, I won't say no at this point in time. That may be something that we can consider doing at a later time. But again, this is Ronnie Smith. I hope you're having a great day. I love you and be blessed. Goodbye.
Hello.
Hi. Also, I'm talking. Yes. I have a MacBook if that's what you look for.
About the phone situation.
All right. Ask your mom again. No, you ask her, and then we have to get with Rachel and do it that way. I talk to your mom one more time because here's what I think is going to happen. But no, you got to hear me out. She needs to tell me the process again. She and I talked about it, but I don't remember.
She was like, just use my phone.
No,
So
you
to my dog, she said to them,
oh,
I know. That's not me.
no, but what I'm saying is you gotta I gotta remember how we're gonna do it because we're not gonna take your phone there to the Apple store.
Why not?
No, I mean I think we had to take Rachel. That's why I'm saying you gotta talk to your mom again. No, listen, don't say anything. We gotta listen, we gotta take her phone in order to make the plan work that we spoke of. And when we take her phone, that's going to that's what we need to do in order to know how to swap out a phone, get a new phone. That's what we discussed.
Yeah, I talked to
Well,
her. She
I mean, you're gonna have more than one conversation. If it takes more than one conversation, so be it. Okay.